Hello, this is Alan, welcoming you to the 1882nd edition of the Enfield Talking Newspaper, Dateline 22nd of November 2012. The readers this week are Jenny, Sonia, Phil, myself, and Keith is on the controls as usual. The items we will be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette, the Enfield Advertiser, and the Enfield Independent, and are their copyright. Local stories include Borough taking homeless strain, MP's query sparks free school funding probe, 6 sentenced for starting riots, and shock as time is called on a pub. First, here's some special news items. And it's all about Christmas. Sylvia Chapman has arranged a pre-Christmas dance. The dance, which will be with Tequila Sunrise, is at Enfield Civic Centre restaurant next week. That's on Tuesday, the 27th of November, from 6:30 to 10:30 p.m. Tickets are £14. And that includes a buffet meal and drinks. Now, if you want any help about booking transport, please phone 07535 624 915. Enfield Vision are holding a Christmas party at the Park Avenue Centre on the 3rd of December, and that's at 7 p.m. And you can phone 020 8351 7259 for further details. And finally, there is a Christmas lunch for members of the Geranium Club at the Plough Cruise Hill on Tuesday the 11th of December at 1:30. And for more details on that, phone 020 8379 8126. If you are experiencing any problems receiving your Enfield Talking newspaper, please phone Diane de Jersey on 020 8805 6578. She is your listener's representative and will be pleased to help you. At the end of side 2, please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet. Put the cassette into the packet and return it to us as soon as possible, in readiness for the next edition. And now, Sonia will read the first item of local news.
Enfield is facing a huge strain on services after more than 1,000 homeless families from other areas of London have been housed in the borough. Following an investigation by the Advertiser, it can be revealed that at least 1,033 households from boroughs such as Barnet, Camden, Islington, Kensington and Chelsea, and Waltham Forest have been placed in privately rented accommodation in Enfield. Of the boroughs questioned, Haringey was the worst offender, placing 534 families in Enfield. According to Enfield Council, just 142 families are currently placed outside the borough, and yet, according to the authority, around 60 families are flooding into Enfield each month. Critics point to the fact that there are 2,032 people on the waiting list for temporary accommodation in the borough, and the fact Enfield is already facing a strain on public services. Education chiefs, for example, need to find an extra 2,400 school places for the increase in the number of children in the borough. And Enfield looks set to lose its 24-hour A&E department at Chase Farm Hospital in the Ridgeway. The findings come after the government introduced radical changes to housing law on November the 9th, allowing councils to absolve themselves of their duty to house homeless families by arranging 12-month tenancy with a private landlord. Critics say this is likely to leave many people homeless at the end of the tenancy. Ahmet Oykunur, the council's cabinet member for housing, said other boroughs were choosing to place families in Enfield because of cheaper rents in some parts of the borough. And he warned that with the government putting a cap on housing benefits, things are only going to get worse. He told the advertiser, "We cannot turn families away because we have no control over the private sector. But this is putting serious pressure on schools, health and community facilities. We are really seeing the impact of the government's disastrous housing policy and benefit cuts. They do not care about the effects this will have and are leaving all the responsibility with local authorities. The government needs to start building affordable housing rather than making a few individuals richer."
The government is set to investigate the way free schools are funded following a parliamentary question from Enfield North MP Nick Dubois. He raised an urgent question in the House of Commons last week before Local Government and Communities Secretary Eric Pickles. The Conservative MP accused Enfield Council of using government money awarded for the building of new free schools for highways and infrastructure costs instead. Mr. Dubois told the advertiser he was aware a new school was due to be built in his constituency, but was concerned that strict planning laws ensuring developments have to compensate the area's infrastructure would mean less money was spent on the school. Mr. Dubois said the legislation in question, a Section 106, meant that £110,000 intended for the Nightingale Academy's Trust was used to buy CCTV cameras near Kingfisher Hole Primary School. But the council has hit back at the suggestion it is trying to siphon off money ring-fenced for children's education, and a council spokeswoman said, "Section 106 monies are to mitigate the specific impact of any development. In this case, it is likely to be used to address local concerns about traffic congestion and road safety." Mr. Pickles said the government would investigate the Tory MP's claims. He told the Commons, "My honourable friend makes a reasonable point, and I, the Planning Minister, the Under-Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, my honourable friend Nick Bowles, and the Secretary of State for Education are looking into it as a matter of urgency." Mr. Dubois added, "With Enfield suffering a shortage of primary school places in the borough, this news will anger parents who will question why the council has prioritised CCTV installation ahead of funding school places."
6 men who sparked mass disorder across Britain by turning a protest over the death of Mark Duggan into a riot have been locked up for a total of nearly 12 years. The thugs, including a boy from Palmer's Green, took part in the demonstration outside Tottenham Police Station 2 days after Mr. Duggan was shot dead by police. Marcus Knox-Hook, 31, was a close childhood friend of Duggan, who went along to the protest on August the 6th last year, Wood Green Crown Court heard. But he ended up joining a group of looters, including Dwayne Newland, 23, Jamal Mullings and Sean O'Neill, both 19, and Ashley Fagan and Isaac Amoa, both 17. Amoa, of Furs Lane, Palmer's Green, North London, who was 16 at the time of the disorder, was given an 8-month detention training order after pleading guilty to violent disorder. Fagan, of Griffin Road, Tottenham, who was 15 at the time of the riots, was given a 10-month detention training order for violent disorder. The judge lifted reporting restrictions protecting the anonymity of Fagan and Amoa, owing to the overwhelming public interest in last summer's disorder. Prosecutor Jane Osborne told the court how the peaceful protest turned into violence when darkness fell. She said, "A group began to attack police vehicles and to break into premises, and when police officers attempted to intervene and calm down the violence, they were attacked with missiles." She added, "During the course of this evening, more specific acts of looting and violence also took place. Some were committed by large groups of youths and include most of these defendants. Others are committed by one of the defendants acting alone." The court heard how Knox-Hook, O'Neill and Fagan were in Forster Road when 2 police cars were smashed and set on fire. Knox Hook was caught on CCTV kicking the car and releasing the handbrake on another, and later holding up the shutters on the Paradise Gems jewellery store as rioters burgled it and burned it down. The shop's owner, Stephen Moore, lost goods worth more than £403,000 from the store he had run for 35 years. Knox Hook also robbed a £100 bag of change from a terrified Ladbrokes cashier and burgled the Quicksilver amusement arcade, scuffling with a security guard. Defending, Terry Munyard claimed Knox Hook had been crushed by what had happened to his friend. Sentencing Knox Hook and a mower, the judge, Mr. Recorder James Dawson, said they were part of a disgraceful night of disorder. He told Knox Hook, "In your case, I have watched the CCTV and I can see you were taking a great deal of pleasure in causing that mayhem." He added, "I am satisfied all of your cases have crossed the custody threshold and only a custodial sentence is appropriate." Mullings, whose lawyer David Burgess described him as a friend of Mark Duggan's mother, had thrown a bottle he had been drinking from at police as he circled on his bicycle. He then joined Newland and Knox Hook to loot the Quicksilver arcade, while O'Neill and Knox Hook robbed the Ladbrokes betting shop. Knox Hook of Bronhill Terrace, Lansdowne Road, Tottenham, was sentenced to 32 months in prison after pleading guilty to 4 charges: 20 months for violent disorder, 2 months for the burglary of Quicksilver, 8 months for the robbery of Ladbrokes, and 2 months for the burglary of Paradise Gems. O'Neill of Arnold Road, Tottenham, was sentenced to a total of 32 months in a young offenders institution, 20 months for violent disorder, and 12 months for the robbery of Ladbrokes. Newland of Pembury Road, Tottenham, will serve 31 months in a young offenders institution, 28 months for violent disorder, and 3 months for the burglary of Quicksilver. Mullings of Kitchener Road, Walthamstow, was sentenced to 21 months in a young offenders institution, 18 months for violent disorder, and 3 months for burglary.
A pub manager says he is devastated after being given 1 week to vacate the popular pub he lives in before it is demolished. Regulars who drink in the Old Sergeant in Parsonage Lane, Chase Side, have also criticised Enfield Borough Council for closing the pub, which they liken to the bar in American sitcom Cheers. The Old Sergeant will be knocked down along with 10 derelict housing blocks built in the 1950s and 60s as part of a scheme to create 24 new family homes. Manager Phil Baker, who has lived and worked in the pub for 18 months, says he was not aware of the council's plans for the 150-year-old pub until last week. The 57-year-old says the pub went into administration in June under pub operator Sarumdale Limited, but believed the problem would be resolved. Mr. Baker, who must leave the pub by Friday, said, "It's my home. I haven't got a clue what I'll do now. I have nowhere to go. It's devastating for me and the regulars. They are broken-hearted." Mr. Baker, who lives on his own in the pub, hit out at the council for forcing him to leave at short notice, despite the new homes not being built until the end of next year. Angela Townsend, aged 31, who lives in Hawthorne Grove, said the news has hit regulars even harder, as it follows the closure of the Royal British Legion Club in Holtwhite's Hill, which the Enfield Independent reported on last week. Mrs. Townsend said, "It was like an episode of Cheers. When the doors opened, everyone turned around. It was that kind of atmosphere. Everyone did know everyone. I've been going there with my family since I was a baby. My dad said he drank in there with his dad." David Mallison, who has lived in Parsonage Lane for 25 years, attended 2 council consultations about the demolition of nearby buildings in October last year and in January. The 29-year-old claims plans for the pub were not discussed during the meetings, and he has blamed the council for covering up its closure. He said, "The council said all along there is no interest in the pub. It said it was nothing to do with the plans." A council spokesman said, "Enfield Council does not own the building. As such, the current tenants will need to refer their concerns to the administrators who have been responsible for the management arrangements of the Old Sergeant Public House for the past 5 months."
The chairman of the Enfield branch of the Royal British Legion says that there will continue to be a service for the borough's veterans, even though the social club has closed. Following newspaper reports that the club had shut, Brendan Farrell, who has been the chairman for more than 5 years, said the branch, based in Holtwhite's Hill, Enfield, would continue to have a presence in the borough, organising Remembrance Day services and the Poppy Appeal. "I just want to set the record straight," Mr. Farrell, 73, told the Advertiser. "The Legion Club closed, but that has nothing to do with the branch. We at the branch are the ones who organise the Remembrance Day services and the marches, just like we did this year. We are the ones who help the ex-service people. We are still going. We are still here. We still have our office. The social club, which was open only in the evenings, that is the thing that has closed." Mr. Farrell urged any ex-servicemen and women who might need support to get in touch with the branch, which offers a range of welfare services for veterans, including carrying out hospital visits and paying for stair lifts to be fitted in homes. The chairman, who carries the standard at the funerals of former or current members of the armed forces, is due to meet other members of the branch next week to discuss plans for next year's Remembrance Day events and what improvements could be made to the service in Enfield town.
Enfield Borough Council has admitted it is interested in buying a former Royal British Legion club in Chaseside to convert it into a school. The building in Holtwhite's Hill is owned by the Royal British Legion charity, but its 500 club members, comprising serving and retired servicemen and their families, were forced to leave last Wednesday owing to debts. According to members, including club secretary Mariah Hamer, the club offered to pay the debts of just over £8,300 in July, but the Royal British Legion threatened it with legal action if the club did not vacate the building. Councillor Andrew Stafford, Cabinet Member for Finance and Property, said, "All I can say is the council is always interested in any property that comes on the market because we might want to buy it. It is a large building and it is possible we might want to use it for education, and we have always been interested in looking at properties as they come up." He said the Royal British Legion had not put the building up for sale, but if it did, the council would register an interest. He said the council was searching for ways to solve the increasing demand for school places in the borough, saying the building could be a solution. However, the Labour politician dismissed claims that the council could have had a hand in the closure of the club. He said, "Unfortunately, members have been kicked out, and that is nothing to do with the council. That's to do with the National British Legion." He said he was in talks with the leader of the council, Councillor Doug Taylor, about the possibility of finding alternative premises for former members of the club, which was one of the oldest in the UK. A spokesman for the Royal British Legion said the charity had no comment because it was too early to say.
More than 20 college students raised almost £450 at a bake sale for children in need. Young people from the College of Haringey, Enfield and North East London's Enfield Centre in Hertford Road sold cakes and sweet pies to classmates on Thursday. Precious Hannah, who took part, said, "We held the cake sale to raise money for charity, but also because it is part of our course. We learnt about team skills as well as developing entrepreneurial flair, which are essential for business administration. We had to source the cakes, make sure we chose the right ones that would sell quickly and get the pricing right. We've smashed our Conservative target of £200 and raised a whopping £436.11. The cakes were donated by Tesco, Krispy Kreme, Yassir Halim of Hedge Lane, Palmer's Green, and Aroma Patisserie of Green Lanes, Palmer's Green. School pupils are taking a well-earned rest after spending 24 hours bouncing for children in need. 24 young people from Bishop Stopford School in Brick Lane took 5-minute turns bouncing on a school trampoline from 4 p.m. The students, who were dressed as animals, slept in sleeping bags in the school hall while waiting for their next turn to bounce. The money raised is in the process of being totted up. Charity Children in Need called on young people throughout the UK to jump on trampolines as part of the Get Britain Bouncing campaign. And in addition to that, council workers raised £350 for children in need by donning Pudsey ears in Enfield Civic Centre on Friday. Staff, councillors and members of the public bought £2.50 ears and £2 Pudsey pins from the council's headquarters in Silver Street in Enfield Town, with all the cash earmarked for the good cause. A total of £26,757,446 was raised nationwide for the charity, which will be used to support disadvantaged children and young people in the UK.
As you can probably tell, we're all bouncing as we read these items this week, and we're still wearing our Pudsey ears, of course. Barnes and Chase Farm NHS Trust is shedding 150 administrative jobs in a bid to cut its budget. The Trust has refused to rule out redundancies from its backroom departments, although a spokeswoman said laying staff off would be a last resort. NHS staff have been told that the changes, which are currently under consultation, would see 150 full-time backroom posts, such as appointments and referrals, axed. The Trust, which is currently in merger negotiations with the Royal Free in Hampstead, said it hoped the majority of cuts would be achieved by reducing agency workers, not replacing staff who leave and redeploying staff into vacant positions in other NHS organisations. A Trust spokeswoman said, "To help ensure our patients have a better experience when using our services, we will be reconfiguring our administrative support to introduce more efficient systems and ways of working. This type of change will clearly result in some concern and uncertainty for staff. We have already spoken to the staff affected and will keep them updated regularly to keep any anxiety to a minimum."
Members of a girl band determined to become a household name are through to the finals of a major music competition. Sophie Theodolou, Faye Grant and Penny Phillips from Motown band Elamar impressed judges during the area finals of the Open Mic UK competition in Hayes on Sunday. Miss Theodolou, who works in Emma Clare Hair and Beauty Spa in Church Street, is already in training with her bandmates for the finals in the O2 Arena in Greenwich on January the 19th. Miss Theodolou from Enfield Town said, "We are so happy. It was a really lovely theatre and there was a big audience. It was brilliant."
About 14 former patients of psychiatric institutions opened at the Dugdale Centre in Enfield last week. The interactive exhibition in London Road, Enfield Town, called We Live Here Now, marks 21 years since people who were sent away to live in institutions were allowed to return to Enfield and live in residential homes under the Community Care Act. Charity 1-to-1 started the project 2 years ago with the aim of raising public awareness about people with special needs. The exhibition will run Monday to Saturday between 9:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. until Thursday, November the 29th.
We have now reached the end of side 1 of this tape. Please stop your machine now, take out the cassette, turn it over and start side 2.